On this episode of Local Film Talk, we're chatting with the Smith brothers of Unexposed Microcinema in Durham. To get this episode and all our other episodes first, subscribe to the Local Film Talk channel on YouTube. If you don't have time to watch it, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Now let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Local Film Talk. I'm Bob Walters of Triangle Life TV.
And I'm Conrad Arnold of Triangle Film Community. And we're talking with the Smith brothers of Unexposed Microcinema today.
Purveyors of experimental film here in the Triangle, which is a pretty neat little subgenre, eh?
Oh, yeah. And, they've been doing this screening series for about a year. And then they opened up a small place in East Durham. The Microcinema can hold probably about 100 people, I think. Mm-hmm. And they put on 2 shows a week there every Friday and Saturday. It's a great little venue. Yeah,
it's a cool place. I've been to a show a couple months ago. You were actually the one that turned me on to experimental film and turned me on to them. And for anybody who went out to Film Spark last year, the Smith brothers actually did a screening there. So, and this is they're actually this gets into our upcoming events. Mm-hmm. They will actually be doing an encore presentation of the same show that they did at Film Spark at the Cary Theater later this week. So it's a Triangle Film Community thing, so why don't you tell the folks about it?
I can do that. So they put together this 90-minute program for Film Spark, and we're showing the encore. It's all locally made experimental films that they curated for us. It's going to be at the Cary Theater this Thursday night, March 17th at 7 p.m. The Smith brothers will be there to introduce the show. I think a couple of the filmmakers will be in attendance.
Oh, awesome. How much is that? Is that a free screening?
It is a free screening.
Awesome. Yeah. So come out and check out a whole new genre of film that most of you out there are probably not familiar with. But it'll be cool. The Smith brothers will be there. So they're awesome guys. They're happy to chat, answer any questions you have. So it'll be a fun evening.
Come see some stuff you hadn't seen before.
Yep. Second our agenda, what is it? Film Spark submissions. Since we are mentioning Film Spark,
that's right.
Triangle Film Community thing. I'll let you take the floor.
Again, Triangle Film Community.
Conrad gets all his talking out of the way in these intros, so he doesn't have to talk during the actual episode.
It didn't snap time later. So we took over the organization Film Spark last year, and we came into it kind of late. We're actually in on it at the start this year, so we've got more time. We've reopened the Film Freeway submission page for the festival. So right now we are taking submissions. We are in the early deadline phase. So if you are submitting a film to us, it is only $10. And unlike last year, not only are we taking shorts, we are going to go ahead and do features as well. So any North Carolina filmmakers that have a feature they're willing to submit our way, we are more than glad to take it.
There's a lot of festivals out there, and it can get expensive. So go ahead and get in on this one while it's nice and cheap.
Yeah.
And what's just to clarify for myself, what are the we're taking films from all the way back as 2014?
Right.
Okay.
So we would prefer more recent films than we got last year. So definitely please check it out. We'll include the link to the Film Freeway page.
Absolutely. That'll all be down in the show notes.
Yes. And
yeah.
I was about to say, I know we've already gotten a good handful of submissions already.
Yeah, we're off to a good start. It's only been open about a week or two, and we've already got quite a few submissions. So
I'd say
we want more.
Another week, yeah.
So go ahead, submit to Film Spark. The doors are now open, so come on in. And finally, Conrad and I, as we've mentioned before, are both part of a sketch comedy group here in Triangle called Zero Headspace, and they're having their first live show this coming weekend. If you happen to be watching this not long after it comes out, let me check the calendar here. It's going to be March 18th, 19th, and 20th at Theater in the Park.
8 p.m. each day.
8 p.m. each day. I think $10 to get in.
I think that's right.
Yeah, a lot of great sketches. You know, we had a whole writer's room. Tons of scripts came in. They got worked on by a bunch of people. Really got polished and sharpened. Ira David Wood, the fourth, is directing the stage play, and these guys have been rehearsing it for months. And it's become a really sharp show. We went and saw the tech run through last night with all the lights and costumes and everything, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I was excited to see all the pieces come together finally.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a funny show, and we definitely recommend you guys go and check that out. Help support our friends in this project we're working on. I don't think there are any other sketch comedy groups in the Triangle at the moment. So come support Raleigh's first and only sketch comedy troupe. And our hope is that once we get this live show out of the way, we'll try to actually put together some recorded videos for the Zero Headspace YouTube channel. So go over and subscribe to that.
Yes, Zero Headspace Comedy on YouTube.
There we go.
One video.
There's one video right now. More to come.
Video. All right.
So I think that's all the business, unless there was anything else you wanted to bring up.
That's all the business.
So let's go ahead and wrap it up so you can go ahead and get to watching The Walking Dead.
Yes.
Zombies. I'm sorry, walkers, roamers, all that stuff. All right.
So
this is it. Enjoy our conversation with the Smith brothers of Unexposed Microcinema. So you guys have a screening coming up at the Cary Theater of experimental films, right?
Oh yeah.
That's I forget that's
Thursday. March 17th.
Okay. And is it local stuff, or where'd you get the films from?
So basically, when we were asked by Conrad to put these things together, we honestly looked at all of our past. When Unexposed was just a monthly screening series, we basically looked at everyone that we screened in the North Carolina region. Most of them came from Durham or Chapel Hill, and it compiled everything. One of them, I guess, was the only one that's not around the Triangle. He's in Charlotte now. His name is Josh Yates. But we hosted him as well. So we basically took all of them, because we knew all their films, because during our monthly screening series they would play as mini shorts. So basically we knew everything that we put together. We had it all ready to go.
Nice. Now, I never got to go to any of the monthly screenings. I know Conrad went to a couple of them. Where were you doing those? Did you have one location, or was it bouncing around?
We bounced around, I think, to about 8 different venues. We started off in a small barn in somebody's backyard in like the suburbs of Durham. It's very
nice.
bizarre. But it was really cool. It was a great little start. We transitioned to somebody's living room, and then to a modern art gallery, and then to a barbecue restaurant, and then to the Shadowbox studio. So we were there for about 5 shows in a row, and we kind of ended it there. Yeah.
Now, I got to imagine if you're doing it in somebody's living room, you don't have a huge attendance. You don't have 40 or 50 people showing up for that.
That was actually pretty good. It was like 30 people still. I mean, it was a
Holy shit, that must have been a big living room.
Yeah, it was actually huge. It's on Birch Ave somewhere. It's this massive house. There's like 7 people who live there. So it was actually fun.
Awesome.
There's more of a floor situation, seating.
Now, I'm not as familiar with the experimental film stuff as, Conrad is, and certainly not, as much as you guys are. So give us a little bit of a, for the general audience who may not be too familiar with it, give kind of an overview of what experimental film is and, what would make something fall under that category.
So basically, experimental film is the artistic side of filmmaking. Brennan and I always say we might as well be a painter, but instead of a paintbrush and a canvas, we have a camera. Typically,
you guys do some of your own, right?
Yeah, we've made 2 documentaries over in Mexico and Indonesia, and we raised a bunch of money, shot it on 16mm film, which is very strange nowadays to shoot a documentary like that, but
Right.
But yeah, it was just us two making this movie. It was one idea. There was no outside influences. There's no producers. There was no grips. There's no lighting. There's none of these things that people assume that goes into most productions, I guess. But yeah, the artistic side of filmmaking, the avant-garde, the forefront, they're the ones experimenting with techniques and styles and different narratives and to try to make something new.
Conrad was explaining it to me the other day, and he had an interesting way of putting it. He said, you know, a lot of people might think experimental film, that's kind of weird. I don't know if I'm into that. But his point was, if you watch like a lot of music videos and everything, a lot of those would fall under the experimental category.
It's actually funny because a lot of the film festivals, I wouldn't say a lot, but a few of the experimental film festivals out there actually do have a music video category. So it's funny that you say that. So, because it is, because a lot of music videos can be very experimental. We actually just made our first music video for a local band, Secretary.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, and it was very experimental. But they were super down. We were like, hey, we got all this weird footage left over from our Indonesia trip. They're like, perfect, yeah, let's just roll with it. So it's all these rituals and stuff. It was a weird 16mm techniques and all, but it worked out, you know. But yeah, it's cool. Music videos and Hollywood, they basically, what we've learned is they steal or borrow from experimental film. They steal from the avant-garde. They see these techniques and they utilize them in their own narrative. So like you see Hollywood movies today doing something as simple as a flashback or maybe like strange dreams. Like those landscapes were unheard of in the 50s in Hollywood movie, but it's very normal today. But you know, they took that from early experimental film and kind of adopted it, and now it's just a part of Hollywood or whatever.
Right.
I had a film instructor whose wife worked for School of the Art Institute in Chicago, teaching a lot of experimental film classes. And she was in tight with Green Cine, who used to rent out DVDs of experimental films online, and had access to who rented those movies. And the most, like the largest group of people who rented those DVDs were ad agencies.
Oh wow, nice.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome. That's insane. That's cool. Yeah, School of the Arts Institute, man, they're just, you know, pumping out experimental filmmakers.
Well,
Just-
Brackage. You know, they had Brackage, so
yeah,
they got a legacy to uphold.
yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's, you know, a good point, Conrad. You know, when you're making a commercial and you got to tell a story or get a point across in 30 or 60 seconds, you know, you got to try some different techniques. So yeah, I could totally see how they'd want to research into some more experimental types of filmmaking.
Yeah, definitely, and it's funny because we're asked a lot about experimental film. Like, I mean, even when waiting tables, somebody literally was like, "What do you do?" And they know that, you know, waiting tables isn't all the only thing we do. And
That's your aspiration. You want to be the world's best goddamn waiter.
exactly. Nah. But yeah, so basically that whole experimental film, we always try to tell everyone to shed everything they know about filmmaking, try to shed every question they have, everything they're thinking at that particular moment. They say try to think outside the box. Because normally you say, oh yeah, I do experimental film, and they're like, oh, is that independent? I'm like, no, just pretend, just like basically pretend like every question in your head is usually generally the wrong question that's supposed to be asked, and we try to like show that, you know, we give a spectrum. It's basically like, here's a Hollywood, independent film is a very, very close, and experimental is on the exact opposite spectrum. It's not a business. It's not meant to be made for money. I always say it's the purest form of art, because there literally is really no outlet at all to make money. So these people are just doing it just to do it.
Right.
I always feel like trying to answer what is experimental film, there's no good way to answer that question without seeming a little pretentious, you know? It's like, oh yeah, it's film, but, you know, high art. Oh, you sound like an asshole. But the thing is, it's like some of the coolest things I've seen have been experimental works, you know? And I just can never figure out how to like tell somebody they should check out experimental film without them just, you know, saying, oh god, oh, okay, buddy.
Well, I guess a good place to start is, what would be the most mainstream experimental film? Like, if you wanted to try to point somebody to something that might be the most widely known or the most digestible to a mainstream audience, where would you go? Because my first suggestion would probably be like Waking Life by Richard Linklater. Is probably about as close to kind of straddles that line between mainstream and experimental. Is there something out there that, like, if somebody wanted to get into it, you could say this will kind of give you an idea and open the doorway for you to go look further?
That is actually a really good movie a nice little gateway movie. But I think something that kind of broke through a little bit. Have you guys ever seen Koyaanisqatsi or Power?
No, I haven't
I've
seen
seen parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so Koyaanisqatsi, it's non-narrative, or there is a narrative, but it's literally sped up. It's all time lapses, and basically it's like an hour and a half of time lapse from like the birth of existence, and then it's just nature, and you see humanity rise and the building of cities, and it's a huge thing. It's scored by Philip Glass. I think that got a lot of play, and people kind of know about that, and I don't think they realize that that's very, very experimental. And I don't know. I mean, that's definitely more on the experimental side. Waking Life is a good little, fun little thing to start off with, but
Right.
that's the first thing that popped in my head, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Well, there's one film where I rave about and talk about all the time. It's Charlie Kaufman, the writer, Hollywood writer. When he first, basically, he was always a screenwriter, and he never really directed his own films because it was basically all of his writing was just so kind of just very out there. So sort of like the producer and the director would kind of tone him down a little bit. But the first film he directed, produced, wrote was Synecdoche, New York. And with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and that is an experimental narrative, because there are subgenres of the experimental as a category, and that is by far the most experimental narrative I've seen in the Hollywood realm. Because when you're watching that, there is no, I mean, the cuts and the storyline is completely just, I don't know, it blurs the vision between, I don't know. It's really, I don't know, that movie's incredible, and I rave about that. I tell people to watch that a lot. Just watch that movie. That is an experimental narrative, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it, and you know who that is.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely a what the fuck kind of movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't seen that one. I gotta fill that gap there. I think we recently saw Anomalisa, which was pretty good, but I sincerely doubt it was anything like Synecdoche.
Oh, you haven't seen Synecdoche yet?
No, not yet.
It's out there. It's how would you describe it? It's a guy, a playwright who wins the MacArthur grant and it basically decides he wants to make a play, but it ends up being a play about his life, and he ends up building like full life-size sets, like first of his apartment and then of his whole building. He basically like recreates his entire life and neighborhood and everything in the warehouse. It's bizarre. It's Charlie Kaufman.
Oh yeah, and there's like a set within a set and a set, and it's just basically the downfall of that human being. It will depress you for days. That movie, I've never.
Yes, depression.
If it makes you feel bad, it's probably experimental.
Perfect.
So how did you guys first get into this genre? I assume you got really tired of watching Michael Bay movies and said, I want something a little more interesting.
No, actually, we've been, there's a lot of car chases. We started making really stupid movies when we were like 10, 11. I mean, we were doing that until we were probably like about 18, just in the backyard of our dad's house in Massachusetts. And we tried to get into film school, FSU film school, because we're from Gainesville, Florida, and that was the closest one. We didn't get in, so we were just like, oh, well, what do we do now? And we decided to be international business majors. We were taking Mandarin Chinese. I don't know, it was weird. And so we're taking all these business classes, financial accounting, out of control. And there was one gen ed that we could take, and it was within the English department, and because there is no film department at the University of Florida, so we ended up taking this film studies class, and thinking we're going to be learning about, like what he was saying, lighting and, I don't know, sound things, and what PA and DPs and all those like letters that people say and we don't know. Still to this day, actually don't know, because when we entered that class, it was all about experimental film. So we actually honestly stumbled in it, like 100% stumbled in that with this professor named Roger Beebe. ended up like it was like probably a semester to to accept it as a because it takes a while. I always tell people it takes a while to accept it as a form of art because we're trained to know the language of film through Hollywood since we were 1 year old. So took about a semester to accept it, about a year to like, and a year to totally fall in love with it and decide we're going to do it forever, as long as we can do it. So we took 5 classes with this one professor, like production classes with 16 millimeter, with video, or cameraless filmmaking, and
Cameraless filmmaking.
Oh yeah.
yeah, direct animation on film strips.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how that happened, and we popped out. I mean, it was our senior year. A few months before we graduated, we launched a Kickstarter to basically buy all these Bolex and rolls of film to go to Mexico. We graduated, and 3 days later, we were in the deep mountains of Mexico, Oaxaca, like where they speak an ancient language, ancient Aztec language. There's only 20,000 people who speak this language, Chitino. So that's sort of how that all started. It was pretty intense, very quick. I don't know.
So, what were some of the things he introduced you with? What were some of the films he showed you?
I don't know. He, like a lot of experimental, like say Duke in their MFA program, they watch a lot of Brackage films and a lot of like 60s and 70s filmmakers. Our professor was actually afraid of showing us too much. He was afraid because the idea of experimental is bizarre because the word itself has kind of become a genre and within experimental filmmakers' minds. So like people, like we run this festival and we basically get 10 kinds of submissions, There's the black and white abstract film, and then there's the experimental narrative, and then there's the experimental documentary with one man talking, and so our professor was afraid of showing us too much, but he did show us a lot of modern day experimental filmmakers, which was kind of cool, like friends, like one of them was Bill Brown. Actually, he teaches at Duke, and we're actually screening him at the Cary Theater on Thursday. The first film we watched of his, it was called Confederation Park, and we completely fell in love with Bill Brown and his style. And he just shoots like 3-minute. He just shoots a 3-minute shot, an entire roll of 60 millimeter film. It's about $70, and he just sits the camera down and shoots like this beautiful scenery, and he has this like poetic little inscription on top of it, and I don't know, like he has this faith and hope that something beautiful will happen in 3 minutes, and something seemingly always does happen, and kind of fall in love with that style of like hoping for I don't know, life to fall into place onto the camera, into the film or something. But yeah.
Well, I gotta imagine that by the nature of what you're saying of experimental film being, and it being like as purely artistic as just about any cinematic pursuit can be. And correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth and just talking out my ass, but it may also seem like, since it's supposed to be an artistic expression, it's supposed to be completely about what you're thinking and what you have to say, and it's not about emulating anybody else's style, right?
So that is the true nature of experimental cinema. But people do fall into ruts, and like maybe they study one filmmaker too long and they try to emulate them. But I think that's when you're learning and you're a student, and you kind of you emerge from that and start to develop your own style. Like me and Brennan in particular, we fell in love with 2 or 3 different filmmakers, and we kind of emulated their style, but then put a little twist on it. Kind of like how I think most disciplines are. I don't know, just like a guitar. You play guitar and you try to emulate one person, but you kind of put a twist on it and create your own style or something. Yeah.
You either join a Led Zeppelin cover band or you come up with your own thing.
Yes.
Nice. So, what would you say you guys' style is, or what is your favorite style of experimental film that you were listing some of the different types you usually get submissions as? What kind of things really get you excited?
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about experimental documentaries. Brennan and I really love teetering the line between reality and fiction, and we like kind of playing and toying with reality to create with a new reality, essentially. Like our last film in Indonesia, we shot it, and it was like a historical document in a way. It's 10 rolls of film, back to back to back, unedited, and it told the story of the downfall of Bali, Indonesia, and the island after they started selling rice. After rice stopped becoming a commodity, and they started selling it for cash. And then, so we took this film, we shot the modern day Bali, and basically manipulated it in a way to make it seem like this is when Bali started, and they started selling rice, and the culture started degrading, and mass tourism started developing, and so like we kind of tricked. It's like we've shot for 50 years, but no, we shot for 6 weeks, and we kind of like transcribed a new reality, or some. It's a strange little thing that we do. But
so those are definitely, yeah, experimental documentaries are definitely what we honestly started making. We wanted to make documentaries because we honestly didn't like the direction that regular documentaries were going. Just seemed to just follow the same formula, and we're always so frustrated with that formula. Well, why does it have to front load you in the first 5 minutes and then sort of drone out for the next hour or 20 minutes or so? So we wanted to play.
You guys don't love Michael Moore movies?
Yeah,
I'm not a fan myself.
So we honestly wanted to like start playing with it. Like when we made our first film, we didn't know. Our professor didn't really like teach us where to submit to film festivals. We didn't know what to submit to, so we were just seeing documentary festival. Started submitting to them before we even started submitting to experimental film festivals, and we were getting rejected horrifically. I mean, they were sending back grade sheets, and we were getting like an 18 out of 100. And people, our first screening ever was at the Cincinnati Film Festival, and we got there. We were so excited, so we got there, and the guy who was one of the part of the selection committee, he said that the previous year there was another man part of the selection committee, but he had just moved back to LA. But while he was in Cincinnati during the second year of this festival, like the year before we got in, he's a doc guy, like he's a documentary Hollywood guy, and he said that this man told us that Hollywood documentary guy would have banned this movie and told everyone to watch it just to show what is not a documentary. And we always thought that was so confused. So this guy.
So what you're saying is it's very memorable.
But yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. But
your film left an impression. Nice.
Yeah, but that's just so funny because, like, in our eyes, oh yeah, solely documentary, completely true, 100%. Stories is exactly the same thing, but just the layout and the actual structure of it. So that's why we get really excited about these experimental documentaries.
Well, that kind of review goes completely contrary to the idea behind experimental films. It's like there's not really a wrong way to do it.
Yeah, so, yeah, exactly.
Maybe a wrong way to make a documentary, but not something experimental.
Yeah. There's a little bit, maybe sometimes a little bit wrong. I mean, we get 500 submissions for our film festival. And
that's true. I mean, you got to eliminate people on some kind of criteria.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some sort of criteria.
So you're talking about festivals. What does the landscape look like for people who want to play in this genre?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's see. Normally, we always got these numbers from somebody. I think it was a professor. He once said it. He was like, there's over 5,000 film festivals in the world. There's only like 50 experimental. And I honestly, now that we're super in the game of this,
now 51.
Exactly. Exactly. But now we're like super in the game. I can't even name like 15. So it's there's definitely a small. There is an outlet. You have to find it, though. There'll be very strange places sometimes. 25 frames per second film festival is in Croatia, but there's like very, very specific spots. We didn't know about these areas until we actually started running our own film festival. Started getting submissions from these bizarre places, and we were saying, "What's happening in Winnipeg, Canada? Oh, they're pumping out experimental films." So we actually started looking at them, and so it was actually kind of cool to find these little pockets of this experimental film stuff and to learn new outlets.
So what is the scene like in different parts of the world, and what areas would you say are more interested in that genre?
I think the areas that are more interested are, the thing is about experimental film is it kind of exists in and around universities, because basically they're artists and they want to make this experimental cinema thing work, and they don't know how to make it work, so they go get their MFA, and they get their MFA and they don't know what to do, so they go teach. So I would say 98% of experimental filmmakers are professors in colleges, and so within these universities, they start teaching, and then they start teaching experimental film, and so many universities around the country actually teach experimental film because of this, and like, so it's a strange thing, like that's why we moved here, because of Duke and their MFA program, but we wanted to kind of exist outside of them and have some kind of symbiotic relationship with them, but not really be financially a part of them, and try to begin our own thing, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, we quickly learned that just the obvious parts, New York, Chicago, but then Milwaukee's pumping them out.
Boston,
yeah. They're starting. They have an AGX collective now coming out of Emerson and Mass Art. Some of the top filmmakers, like the older ones that are just professors in Mass Art, and like.
Then there's places like Albuquerque, New Mexico, and well, now Durham, actually. There's a lot of experimental filmmakers in Durham, and yeah, Muncie, Indiana. Like Muncie, Indiana is a
Muncie, Indiana, no way.
Yeah, Gainesville, Florida. It's strange. Yeah, it's kind of like the professors there who have a huge impact, enough to challenge and like send off their students into the world and to create something bigger.
Okay. How about on a global scene? Because one of the stereotypes of either art house or experimental films, one of the stereotypes is like French films and that kind of thing. Is experimental stuff big in Europe, or do you find it's bigger in like India or China right now?
I mean, it definitely is. It's definitely bigger in Europe, and I would say only because there's actually huge financial. They have huge financial support over there. So if you want to make a film or you want to start a film festival, the city or the state, they'll fund you an insane amount. Like we were just bonding with a guy. He's in Scotland and he has a film festival called Alchemy Film Festival, and it's a really cool experimental festival. And he asked Brennan and I, we were bonding about just directing a film festival, and he asked us how much money our grants are, and we said 3,000, and he said I get 50,000 pounds.
Whoa!
So that like the financial so there's so much support over there for this because they actually regard it as a legitimate and true art form that I think there's a lot more studios, a lot more filmmakers, but they have a whole different.
Right.
There's a whole weird American stuff going on, but.
And there are a lot of places around the world where it seems like it's a lot easier for a small, to jump into the mainstream world. In some countries, it seems like almost any indie film that comes out was made through the possibility of getting some kind of government grant. Like it always seems like just about every independent Australian film I see, says something like paid for by the national. Australian National Film Grant something, Scotland and Ireland seem to be up there too. The governments in general and institutions seem to be more supportive over there.
Absolutely. In Canada, like what he was saying earlier, Winnipeg and Toronto and Montreal have big scenes. Every one of their films at the end is supported, and there's endowments and grants from the governments. Every one of their films has a nice little tagline at the end, But you see a lot of American, like United States filmmakers. I mean, you have to be huge. You have to be very, very big and influential and been in the game for 15 years or so to have that stamp of grant approval or something. I don't know.
What do you do with $50,000 making an experimental film, or was that to run the festival that he was getting the money for?
I wouldn't even know anyway. Yeah, I was to run the festival. I mean, Jeremy and I sometimes struggle to spend $3,000 for our own film festival.
I was gonna say, an experimental film with a $50,000 budget. Holy shit!
You should see some Matthew Barney films.
Matthew Barney. Okay,
Yeah.
you're writing this down, right, folks? We'll have to put some of this in the show notes.
What, like giant, insane budget, experimental, surreal.
Nice.
Oh wow, jeez.
So
They're a little hard for me to watch. Lots of like Vaseline for the most part. That's like every Matthew Barney film right there.
You say Vaseline?
on the
Gallons and
lens,
gallons
right?
of
On the
Vaseline.
lens.
Oh.
So you guys were saying you moved here partially because of the Duke University and the programs they have there, and you were talking about maybe trying to partner with them or get somehow working with them. I'm sure you probably weren't doing too much with them in the beginning. You were having monthly screenings all over town, but now that you have a space and is it weekly, bi-weekly now screenings?
It's actually twice a week now.
Twice a week, okay. Are you making some ties with them? Are you getting any support from the university?
Not yet. It's definitely something we're gonna probably approach very soon. Can't keep picking more shifts up at the BBQ joint anymore, so we
Right.
might have to maybe go. But I mean, like honestly, like though, I mean, actually in the beginning we were immediately seemingly tied to Duke because our whole goal was to start pulling Duke professors off campus and to show their work in the Durham community. So that was like our first goal with Unexposed, was that, like just that in itself. But yeah, no, I mean I guess, yeah, I don't know. Maybe soon.
Okay. Well, like you said, at least you've made contact with some of these professors and gotten some of their work, and you're going to be screening that. So that's cool. That's a good first step.
Yeah, definitely. No, that was like our whole thing. I mean, we joke around. We were like, we joke around a lot to people. We're like, our first goal when we moved to Durham was to become friends with Bill Brown, who we watched. That was the first experimental film we basically watched, and to become friends with Bill Brown and just hang out. So,
step one: show up on his front door. Will you be our friend?
Yeah, exactly. I just want to pop in one day. I want him to pop in. Just want to pop in.
Nice. So like I mentioned, you guys went from a monthly screening that bopped around to whatever place you could find available to now you actually have your own space. So tell us a little bit about what that is, what went into putting it together, and what people can see there.
Yeah, so we decided that we decided we needed to structure it pretty. I mean, we had the structure actually a few months before we even, I think. Or actually, it was direct. God, sorry. Ooh. Let me just start with the structure.
No, it's all right. Go for it. Rewind. Okay, go.
So basically, each month we choose a region of the United States, and once that region is chosen, we, with our head curator Anna Kipperwasser, choose the filmmakers. So first month was New England. We just chose New England, and then through New England we chose about 6 filmmakers.
Yeah.
Chose 6 filmmakers, and then wrote to them and said, congratulations, you're going to be a part of this whole month-long endeavor at the Unexposed Microcinema, where we're focusing on New England filmmakers. So once they agree to all of our things and terms and all the stuff that we're going to do, they start sending us a bunch of work. So all those shows are centered around Fridays. So every
now that's really interesting. That's the reverse way that most people go about putting on a festival. Usually they just put out the call and say, send us your stuff and we'll pick something. But you actually take the time to go and watch, I don't want to say all, but a lot of what's in that area, and then from that select who you want and then tell them, hey, you're in the festival, or we want you in the festival, send us something. That's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, well, that's actually funny because we're actually doing that what you just described, because we are starting a film festival out of the space. So we're actually right now we started a whole UNX collective thing with sort of these key people in the community to basically pre-screen these films, what you were talking about, put the call out, get all these submissions, watch them. Mm-hmm. So we're actually doing that, but that's a whole side thing. But for the actual microcinema and this monthly structure, so it's not really a festival. That's why we say congrats to these guys and gals, but you know, it's not really a festival. That's why it's really funny, because no one really understands it. There's a lot of questions. No matter how much, I mean, we spend 2 weeks writing that email, that congrats email, and being like, this is what we're doing. These are the shows on Friday. This is how it's all going down. And there's still 10 different questions from each filmmaker. What's going on?
Because nobody's ever received a sketchy email that starts out with congratulations, you've won. Here are the things we need you to do.
Yeah, basically it's just a different style of programming and curating that I think most cinemas or microcinemas aren't really doing. It's focusing geographically and showing experimental film in multiple ways throughout an entire month. That's kind of what we're doing, and because basically, like last night, we had a music show with Stranger in the Valley of the Kings, and I think it was about 22 people showed up, and 20 of them have never seen an experimental film in their life. They were just there to see the band, but we coordinated the films because we're focusing on the Great Lakes, so we had all these films from Milwaukee and Chicago. So we coordinated the films to match with the music. And so suddenly these people who are interested in music are now starting to become interested in film and that relationship. So we're like kind of drawing from all art communities essentially, not just the film crowd, but the music and the art world.
Right.
Yeah.
Now this was interesting, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to make it out to one of these because it sounds really cool, but the idea is almost like you're putting on a concert, but you're showing the films in the background, and obviously you put a little more work into it, sync it up and everything, but like you said, people come for the music, you know, to see a band perform live, but what's going on the screen behind them is experimental films that they can say, oh, that was really cool, you know, not only did I like that song, but the show going on behind was pretty cool, and you know, you're like, oh, that wasn't just some, you know, like most bands, when you go to a concert, they just drive around town and shoot screwy stuff like driving through the street to put on a concert. But you're like, no, these are actual films that we're matching up, and people can get interested that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we do a little differently, because this exists in the experimental film world and even the regular film world. You know, musicians will score videos. I mean, that's, you know, with everything. But we're actually doing it differently. They send us the set list of what they're going to play, and we always say we visually score their music. Okay. So it's kind of this backward situation where we're testing it out, and it's actually been working really well because we get these people so pumped about experimental film they have no idea what they're watching.
Right. Well, like we were saying earlier, you know, it can be kind of a daunting thing, or people already have preconceived notions about what it is, and they probably think they're not going to like it, so you got to find some way to ease them in. And like I was asking earlier about a mainstream movie that could help lead people in, you know, doing it this way through a concert is probably a better way of getting people to you know, to see what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess that leads into another interesting question. What have you found the audiences for experimental films to be like? It sounds like most of the people coming in are actually first-timers, but you know, are most of the people? Is that true? Are most of them first-timers? And the ones who are familiar with it, you know, what's their level of enthusiasm or familiarity with the scene out there? Are you usually surprising people?
I would say a good 50% are like a core group of people who keep coming back, and then every single show we have, the other 50% is totally new people, and we have no idea who they are. They're just members of the community, or they could be students at Chapel Hill. Like one of our screenings, some girl was taking an elective, was it at a UNC, a film elective, and she just brought 4 of her friends, and so there's just 5 UNC students just sitting there watching experimental film, and that was cool. That excites me more than anything, just people who are stumbling into this situation and kind of learning from it. And I don't know, like you were talking earlier about experimental film kind of becomes pretentious rather quickly, and it's true, and Brennan and I try in every way to make it the least pretentious thing to say, hey, you come into the show tonight, and when we go up in front of people, we have like this lighthearted demeanor, and because we want people to come back, we don't want to like twist people's minds into some kind of pretentious nut and ruin their day, and we want to like make it exciting and accessible and if we're excited about it, they can be, and I think that's why people keep coming back.
Right, right. Well, like like you said, you gotta ease them into it, and not make them feel like it's something they got to show up for wearing a polo shirt and a scarf. It's hey, we're just regular guys, and it's just come and hang out and see if you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, talk a little bit about, because the Microcinema is actually a pretty cool place. Tell people about that and where it is and what that place is like.
Yeah, it's technically in the it's in the downtown district, which is great for future grants and such. But it is in the arts district, so we're right across the street from Golden Belt, on a street right off Main called Hood Street. Very small street. We're literally on one end, and Pony Source Brewery just opened up on the other end, which is great because previously there was no real reason. There was no real bars or anything out there for somebody to go out there, that side of sort of town, I guess, at night. Pony Source really opened that up, so now, there's just like hordes of people just around our street now.
Right.
And these people just come up to the door and like, what's going on in there? Especially last night when the band was just absolutely blaring out the garage.
Nice.
So it worked out, but
yeah, so it's like a strip of buildings. There's 6 units. There's 6 units in this one building. It's a cool little strip. We're unit number 5, and the lady next to us is a Honey Girl Meadery, and she has like tanks, and she's making honey wine. And the guy next to us, the other side, is Super Graphic, Bill Fick, and he does a lot of screen printing workshops. And we're kind of sandwiched in the middle in number 5, and we have this little venue Microcinema thing. It's pretty cool. People find it very difficult to find, but once they find it, it's some kind of gem and some weird East Durham rough. But
And
right.
you guys
If you're
are like
in the
2 doors
Ponies-
down from Lenny over there at Hey Monkey, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's number 1.
Lenny's cool.
yeah, Lenny's awesome. His space is, oh man, I just want to be in there.
I haven't been in it, but I've seen it because I'm editing some footage that was shot in there, and it's like, holy crap, it looks awesome.
It is really cool. Yeah. It's funny that you said that because actually we just we opened the Microcinema to people renting, and we actually just had this guy come in, Todd, come in and actually shoot the last or like 4 scenes of his feature film at the Microcinema, which is really cool to see. He just sent us all the scenes, and we're like, it's really cool. Like looking at like all the paintings and stuff, and then the random couch.
Todd who?
Sorry?
Who was the filmmaker?
I think
It's Todd Tinkham.
Todd Tingham. Oh, that dude's awesome.
We know Todd. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Very cool. Well, this has been awesome, guys. I hope the people out there in the audience have learned something new and are a little bit interested now. So if they do want to come out and visit the Microcinema, what days are you open? What does it cost? All that stuff.
Yeah, so basically we're Fridays, every Friday at 8 p.m. So the first Friday would be just regular black box screening to introduce the new region and the new filmmakers that we're focusing on the whole month. And that'll be 8 p.m. It's always $5 no matter what. It's $5.
Always $5. That's cool.
It's $5. The second Friday would always going to be the music and film series, so different band, different films. Third Friday we do participate in the art walk. Third Friday Durham Art Walk, but we're actually starting to participate a little bit less, so sort of be open for that art walk to see these films in an art installation kind of setting, but then also actually still have a screening at 8 p.m. Of something, like and then fourth Friday is continuing with the tradition that we used to do when we were just a monthly screening series, which is artists in attendance to show a larger body of their work. So yeah. So
basically every Fridays and most Saturdays you can expect us to be open.
So now, now on our website is we legitimately really, because people are like, I'm so confused, and I was like, you know what, we're just gonna slap a calendar. You go to our website, and the first page is just the upcoming shows. So yeah.
Right. Which the website is thesmithbrothers.com, and that's Smith with a Y /unexposed. Right? Am I at the right one?
That's our normal website. That's just
all right. What's the website?
those are just the things that we do or whatever. But the actual website is just unexposedmicrocinema.com. So that's just solely, there's literally, you go to that homepage, there's two things to do. You either submit, which is submit to the film festival, or you experience, and that's basically experience the venue, and that's just all the stuff we do inside the venue.
Okay. Unexposedmicrocinema.com. Okay. And more current for people who are checking this out within the first couple days that it comes out, you guys are actually going to be doing a big screening over at the Cary Theater, right?
Oh,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, go. Were you talking to Conrad?
No.
Conrad, you've been a little quiet. Tell us about this.
Oh yeah. Well, this is the encore screening of the Song of Myself program that was put together for Film Spark last year. So this is pretty cool that we get to actually show it again at the Cary Theater, which is just a nice venue, as it is. And I know you guys told me you were reaching out to the filmmakers. How many are coming out Thursday night?
I'm not sure. I think Jeremy is doing that.
We're not sure. I think we're hoping that Anna Kippervisor can come. But yeah, hopefully a couple of them.
I think Bill Brown's trying to come as well.
I know that would make your night if Bill showed up.
Yeah.
He'll come to one of your screenings.
The
thing is,
He may not be at your space, but he came to one of your screenings.
so I think Duke is on spring break, so I think they all dipped out of town, unfortunately. So
I would.
But Brennan and I will be there, and you can talk to us, and we can talk.
Nice.
Which, and yeah, it's worth pointing out for anybody who made it out to Film Spark last year. You guys did, Conrad approached you guys asking if you'd program a night, but you were actually putting together a film festival in, what was it, Vermont?
New Haverhill.
Haverhill, Massachusetts, yeah.
And we're kind enough to still, even though you were real freaking busy, put together something for Film Spark. So thank you guys very much.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, it was actually pretty incredible how it all came about because we, it's pretty easy when you, when you email people, the subject is urgent with all caps, a couple exclamation points, and we had films and stills and downloads and everything within I think a day and a half from these 8 filmmakers, and believe me, that is a miracle to do that in a day and a half because we definitely know because sometimes with our Festival of North you're dealing with 60 filmmakers and it takes a couple of months to get a download.
Right. Well, hey, you're lucky that worked out well because an email that says urgent in the subject line is right up there with congratulations, you won.
Yeah, exactly. We've
lucky so many people actually opened that one.
Yes, that's true.
So, well, that's really awesome. I'm definitely going to try to make it out to the screening at the Cary Theater. You folks should all try to make it too. And of course, if you happen to be watching this after the screening in Cary, you can always head over to the Microcinema in Durham and check them out. And if you need to look anything up ahead of time, unexposedmicrocinema.com. Where else can people find stuff? You got a Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, any of that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. They're all different names. It's kind of out of control. I think.
Branding, guys, branding.
Oh no, I know. Instagram would literally refuse to, I guess, have the word unexposed because I guess they immediately start thinking about, porn. Yeah. I don't know what people are thinking about, but we could not use unexposed at all. So it's literally just.
Did Facebook let you use it? I would think Facebook would have a problem with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but now our Facebook is, I don't even know anymore.
Does Facebook still have that anti-nipple policy? Or am I just old enough to remember that? Was that like 10 years ago?
I don't remember that.
Really funny.
Yeah, there used to be a big deal. They'd take down anything that had a nipple in it for some reason. It's like nipple was off limits.
Even if it was like a cow nip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our website should direct you to everything, basically. All our social media, all the events. Yeah. With the website, it can help you out a lot. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll try to include all that stuff in the show notes. So if people want to be able to follow them on Twitter or anything, just look down in the show notes, and we should have a link to all that. So, well, thank you guys. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on? Did I cover your life story pretty well?
I think that's good. Yeah.
Did you have anything else, Conrad?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, cool, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. The Smith brothers. go out, check out the Unexposed Microcinema in Durham. Check them out online and show them some love, because it's great for it's a small little niche that definitely needs a lot of support. It thrives and lives on the support of the audience, and it's a pretty cool Friday or Saturday evening. So I would definitely suggest everybody go and take a look. Conrad, of course, my co-host here, is in charge of the Triangle Film community. So just go to trianglefilmcommunity.com. Or what is it on Twitter? NC Film something?
At NC Film.
At NC Film. I always get that one
Do
mixed
we
up.
have to say the at anymore? I have no idea.
I don't know.
NC
Conrad,
Film on
consistency, branding. I got to yell at everybody here today. Jesus. Keep it saying. Let me give you an example, okay?
So if you need your social media taken care of, call Bob. He's the social media.
Let me show you guys how it's done. If you guys like this show and want to be the first to get it in other episodes, check out the Local Film Talk channel on YouTube and subscribe. If you want the podcast, look for the Local Film Talk podcast on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at Local Film Talk, and you can email us your questions and comments and concerns at localfilmtalk@gmail.com. See?
Is there a Facebook page for Local Film Talk?
No, there is not. I do have the Triangle Life TV Facebook page, and I usually post Local Film Talk stuff there. But no, it does not have its own Facebook page. Yet. You never know. You never know what the future may hold. So thank you guys for coming on the show. I appreciate you coming out and talking with me. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next week.